probably noticed in the video footage that as we flew from Georgetown, which is a relatively flat area of ground, into the west towards Venezuela, that the ground became increasingly hilly. As a matter of fact, some of it looked more like plateaus or buttes or mesas. And in this part of the world, that sort of thing might be called a tepui. So Kaieteur's Falls, at the top of the falls, is actually at a relatively high elevation. That's also what makes Angel Falls different. Angel Falls also falls from a tepui, and that allows the great length of the fall. Since we've changed our geology from the flatlands in Georgetown to something a little bit hillier, let's take a look at the geography and do a quick refresher on the geography of Guyana.
Let's see more of that now. Basically, Guyana is like a survival-themed reality TV show location shoot paradise. First of all, Guyana is the second most densely forested country in South America after Suriname, as 3/4 of the country is covered in trees. Keep in mind though, the country is actually made up of 5 natural regions: a fertile marshy plain on the coast, the white sand belt inland made up of sand and clay, where most of the mineral deposits are located, the lush rainforest highland, and if you go way far south, you can get a little bit of desert and savanna in the interior, and then you get the interior savanna lowlands along the border with Brazil. Guyana sits on what is called the Guyana Shield, an elevated geological formation on South America north of the Amazon. This area essentially creates some of the most beautiful iconic waterfalls and all of the strange flat-top tepui mountains, including the tallest peak in Guyana, Mount Roraima, shared by Venezuela and Brazil, even though Brazil only has like 5% of it, but hey, it still counts. The longest river is of course the easily visible from satellite images Essequibo River, which pretty much transects the entire country east to west and is a major source of transport and trade in Guyana. In the forest you can find thousands upon thousands of species of mammals and birds and reptiles like the three-toed sloth, tamanduas, tamarins, capuchins, capybaras, pacas, over 50 different types of bats, which make up like a fifth of all the mammals, and the national animal, the jaguar, can be found here as well.
I have to admit, the thing that I find most intriguing are the tepuis themselves. The tepuis also interested someone else. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the guy that wrote Sherlock Holmes. He also wrote something called The Lost World, and there the tepuis are extremely important, because according to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, if you climbed up onto the top of a tepui and looked around, you would find prehistoric dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. Unfortunately, I have to report that I didn't actually see any pterodactyls or other ancient reptiles, at least the ones that are extinct or believed to be extinct now. Now that we've landed, we're on considerably higher elevation than we were at Georgetown. Georgetown is, for all practical purposes, right at sea level. In fact, in some ways it's a little below sea level, but the point here is you're at a higher elevation. You're at one of those tepuis. The biggest tepui in Guyana is Mount Roraima. In any event, among other things, that means that the flora and fauna have changed to match the topography. And one of the things that's here is the cock of the rock bird. That bird is a little bit different from the one that's in Peru. This one is a little bit more orange-colored, and they perform stage acts at a lek to attract females. We saw the bird, but not the act. I assume we weren't their type. The red plant is a sundew. It's insectivorous. It makes its own glue to trap insects. This next plant is an orchid. Up here they also have bromeliads, the largest in the world, called tank bromeliads. And in those bromeliads you're likely to find colorful frogs, like a golden frog. Now if you see such a small frog in there, he's probably taking care of eggs or getting ready to lay them. And in any case, you probably don't want to touch them because anything that colorful is usually dangerous. Incidentally, behind the waterfall, there are a fair number of birds nesting. Those are Kaieteur swifts. This is Kaieteur Falls. Now, Kaieteur Falls was discovered in 1870 by Europeans for the first time, but of course the Indians had known it was there for a long time. It's about 5 times the drop of Niagara Falls, or about twice the drop of Victoria Falls in Africa. Kaieteur Falls, according to the tourist information, got its name from a pretty interesting little story, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, there are no other falls in the world with the magnitude of the shear drop existing at Kaieteur. Actually, that's kind of fudging it a little bit because Angel Falls is a higher drop. Angel Falls is in Venezuela, but it's not very far away. It says that there's an Indian legend that says that Kai, who was one of the elders of a tribe, wanted to save his people from an invasion, the nasty tribe nearby. And in order to do that, it says, he committed self-sacrifice by canoeing himself over the falls. It was believed that this would encourage the Great Spirit to save the tribe from being destroyed by the savage Karabashi. The Karabashi probably is the name of the Carib Indians, or one of the variations on that. And they were one of the larger, more fierce groups in this neighborhood. But the interesting thing about that story is that the guy that discovered it was told an entirely different story, well, at least a substantially different story, by the Indians when he found it. I've got his book here. It's Charles Barrington Brown is the author, and it's called Canoe and Camp Life in British Guyana. And it was published in 1876, so this is a pretty old copy. So anyway, the story that he was told around the campfire on the day that they discovered these falls reads like this. They were chatting over a fire, and he says, "I got my interpreter to question our Indian friends about the meaning of the word Kaieteur, and learned that rendered into English it stands for old man fall." So it sounds a little bit like what we've just read. The way in which it acquired its name was from a tragedy enacted on the spot in connection with the fall at the time of Indian history, about which there is no certain date, and which may be called the traditionary period. This is the tale as related to me, and now he's quoting the Indians. "Once upon a time, there was a large village above the fall, situated on a little savanna. Amongst the inhabitants, which was an old Indian who had arrived at that period of human existence when his life had become a burden to himself and a trouble to his relatives. Amongst other duties, they were devolved upon his near relations the tedious one of extracting the jiggers from his toes, which there accumulated day by day. These duties becoming irksome, at last, it was arranged that the old man should be assisted on his way to his long home, that spirit land laying 2 days' journey beyond the setting sun. He was accordingly transferred with all of his worldly goods from his house to a wood skin, which I think they mean canoe, on the river above the head of the great fall, and launched forthwith upon the stream. The silent flood bore him to its brink, where the rushing waters received him in their deadly grasp, bearing his enfeebled body down to its watery grave in the basin below. Not long after, strange to relate, his kit appeared in the form of a pointed rock, which to this day is seen not far from our lower barometer station, while on the sloping mass of talus to the west of the basin, a huge square rock is said to be his petrified kit, is his canister. Thus has the fall been named Kaieteur in memory of the victim of this tragic event. Now, I ask you, do you think that it is more likely, based on your knowledge of human nature, that the tourist version is a correct version of how the falls got its name, that is, the person voluntarily went over the falls, or that his relatives got sick of a grouchy old man and sent him over the falls?